Hi there. So yesterday I was talking about my childhood experience with the bully on the bus and forgiveness. And today I want to get into my marriage with my ex-husband. So when I was a kid, I grew up in an upper middle class home, and the lifestyle was more of a wealthy home. So my dad owned a steakhouse and they served steak and lobster. It was high end, and he married a woman who was a flight attendant for TWA. So what that meant was when there was no food in the house, we would just go to my dad's restaurant and have steak and chocolate mousse. And for vacation, we would show up at JFK Airport, look at the boards to see where we could go on a European vacation. And it would cost $8 to fly round trip on standby and $16 to fly round trip first class. So we would just show up, think we were going to Amsterdam, and end up going to Madrid for 5 days and go back home. And then we would do it again, the next time, and we would go to London or wherever. So it was a really cool way to grow up. And I basically married into the same exact circumstance. And there are some patterns that happened in my family that I also married into. And obviously, in retrospect, it was so that I can heal those things. So, one of the patterns in my family was that my dad would come home with a bottle of wine every night and he would, drink, or when he was watching football games or whatever, he would drink wine. Not that drinking wine is a bad thing, but there's a certain point when somebody, becomes intoxicated that they kind of become, or at least my dad did, became a dick. My ex-husband had a drinking, issue as well. And he would actually be the opposite. But the thing is, and he would become like mushy, and I was just like, get away from me. Like, ugh. The thing is, the energy is kind of, it's icky. It's like this energy that you can't really connect with. And I'm a very deep person and I need like actual connection, not like fake connection. That was a issue that I called into my life, that I needed to sort of address and be able to see if that was something that I actually wanted. There are a couple other patterns that happened in my life that were a repeat of my childhood, which were my ex-husband and I went through multiple court battles, and there was a lot of sort of parental alienation of my children from me. And I guess a lot of times parental alienation works the other way around, where the woman does it to the man. But actually, in my childhood and in my marriage, it was the opposite. So my dad sort of portrayed my mom as weak and all these other things, and there was always bad mouthing of my mom going on in my dad's house when I was growing up. And my children, particularly my youngest, was experiencing a really lot of trauma around the whole thing, and there was parental alienation going on in that as well. And then there were other things like financial issues, where since I grew up in this upper middle class home, I never really realized that I had financial issues, especially since I married into the same thing. But then after I got divorced, I kind of had the rug ripped out from under me. And then I realized that I perceived that I needed a male sort of authority figure to bring in the money, because I perceived that I didn't know how to bring in money and I needed somebody else to do that. So it took me a long time to get through that and realize that I could, in fact, and I do indeed, provide for myself, and I can take care of myself, and I can manifest whatever I want. However, if it were not for all the crap that my ex-husband put me through, I never would have gotten to that point where I could realize that, because each time we went through a custody battle or some sort of challenge, I dug deeper into my spirituality and would discover more aspects of myself and would discover greater expansion within myself. And I would sort of seek out those things. And so what that really did was it catapulted me in ways that I never would have imagined were possible. So that now the work that I do through consciousness alignments is something that I didn't even know probably the day before I realized that it was a possibility, And that wasn't until I was in my mid 40s. I'm telling you this because all of these experiences, like I mentioned in the last video, all of these experiences you draw to yourself so that you can learn from them, so that you can grow from them, so that you can expand from them. And these people who deliver these experiences to you are not your enemies. They're actually, and this probably sounds trite, but it's true. Our enemies, or the people who give us our greatest challenges, are actually our angels, or they're there for our greatest development. So they have, on the spiritual level, volunteered to be such an asshole in your life and in my life that they are risking you not loving them on the spiritual level so that you can grow. If you're going through this, you're probably like, yeah, Carrie, that's all a bunch of BS. And I mean, it sounds really great, but I'm really struggling here. And I totally get it, because I have totally been there. In fact, I feel like the universe has sent me more challenges than most people have in their entire lives. And I feel like the universe keeps throwing me stuff because it has so much faith in my ability to overcome adversity. And then I share that. So I'm just like, I'm not so sure I'm happy with this contract here. But anyway, so the people who have caused you the greatest challenges and have caused you the most pain, or who you perceive have caused you the most pain, are actually there to help you see what you're doing to yourself and to help you grow. What I would love for you to do is to take one of your challenging experiences, and we're trying to get to a point of forgiveness, but you can't get to a point of forgiveness unless you can see what you're doing to yourself, and even perhaps what the other person has done to themselves to make them act that way. So with my ex-husband, he had a lot of mental health issues that he never addressed when he was a kid. He would tell me about all of the horrible things that happened with his brothers, but he never told me anything that happened with him as far as like family trauma and abuse and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that he has never even been able to look at. So what I would love for you to do is write down on a piece of paper all the things that you perceive this person has done to you in a specific area. So with my ex-husband, there are so many things that I could write down. I could write a book, but take one thing, like take the parental alienation thing that, we went through. If I were to say, I'm going to call him Joe. Joe alienated me from my daughter. Joe didn't respect that I was a parent. Joe needs to be parenting my daughter. He needs to act like a parent. So if I took that and I turned it around and I said, I need to be parenting my daughter. I need to respect myself. I need to all of these things. Then I can see where I may not be respecting myself. I may not be respecting my relationship with my daughter. I may be allowing for him to do things based on my own fears. What I would love for you to do is write that down, because then when you can do that, you can see what you're doing to yourself. And then once you can see something, everything can change and you can shift gears. But until you can see what you're doing to yourself, you can't do that. So if you're following these as the 365 days of self-love and realization, do that today. It'll help you. And if you're not, and this is just an informative thing for you, do it anyway. So if you haven't been participating in the whole series, the 365 days of self-love and realization, there's a playlist that is going to be at the end of this video. You can click on that and watch it from day one. And also, if you're interested more in consciousness alignments and knowing more about that work, go to healingcenter.com, where you can participate in live group calls. You can access my full library of consciousness alignments, and you can find out how you can get a private consultation. So anyway, until tomorrow, have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for watching.